Hi, this is Ricky. Today I will be interviewing the water cycle. And you might ask yourself, what is a water cycle? Well, it's a process which water goes up into the clouds and it comes back down to the earth. That's the reason why we have water that's millions of years old still on earth. Let's get to this. So the first step of the water cycle is evaporation. And evaporation is what happens when a liquid turns into a gas, just like water. Okay, so the first step of evaporation is the sun has to be real hot, like always. And so the sun heats up the water and it goes to a perfect heat temperature that it turns into a gas. And when that happens, that's when it goes up into a sky because it's so light. It kind of doesn't have any weight. The next step is condensation. So condensation is when the gas, evaporation, the water vapor turns into a cloud, that big white floofy stuff that looks like cotton candy. Then the next step is precipitation. This is when the cool stuff starts to happen. So when precipitation happens, it's when all those little water molecules gather up and form a water drop, snow. Well, actually, rain doesn't begin as rain. It starts as snow, like little tiny snowflakes. And it's really surprising that those little snowflakes are so tiny that it gets really heavy and goes falling down in that snow. And then and then it can come in many forms. So the first form is snow. If it does not touch any heat in that time, it falls down. It's snow. Then it goes rain. If that little snowflake or snowflakes touches heat at any time, it will melt and turn into water drops. Also, next is hail. So hail is snow that I think touches heat, but then it freezes back again before it touches the ground, and that's why hail is like big balls of ice, kind of. Next is sleet. When those little snowflakes touch the heat, it doesn't have enough time to freeze all the water droplets back to ice. So sleet is when rain and hail fall together. And yeah, that's pretty much for precipitation in the forms of rain and snow. And next, you're gonna learn more. Okay, so next is infiltration or runoff. I'll stop for a second. The next step of our water cycle is infiltration or runoff. And what I mean by infiltration or runoff is that it can go either ways, one step or another, but there's still one. So infiltration means when all that rain or whatever, if it's snow or sleet or whatever, it melts, it gets soaked into the ground and it goes into groundwater. And runoff is when it's not able to get soaked in, the water's not able to get soaked in the ground. And like in the mountains, sometimes, like, I don't know how to explain this, but it's like, what's it called? No, like avalanches, but instead it's not avalanches. It's like streams of water going down to land. And what happens there, I guess, well, I don't guess, but what I think, it goes to the river. And the river will eventually go into an ocean, right? And it will, yeah, we'll go down to an ocean. And the next step is back to the beginning. Wait, there's something else. I didn't explain this when we began this video. There's 2 steps. Well, there's 2 choices. Okay. So, the first choice is go into okay, is go into the ocean and evaporates into the sky and makes clouds again. But the next choice is evapotranspiration. Evapotranspiration is when that groundwater that went through infiltration gets sucked up by a plant. That plant will sweat, and that's why sometimes you see, well, it won't sweat, but it gets hot enough that the water will evaporate from the plant, and that's why sometimes you see dewdrops on the plant even though it didn't rain. And next we will be talking about how the atmosphere affects the water cycle. And the last part of our video is, how does the atmosphere affect the water cycle? And the way it affects the water cycle is whenever there are some clouds in the sky, there's winds sometimes too, and the atmosphere lets it has a way to travel around the world faster. So like, if it doesn't rain in a bit of a time, it will travel around because there are winds up in the atmosphere, just like down here. And that's how the atmosphere affects the water cycle. And thank you for watching this video.